David Bennett.
I move that the question be now put.
David Cunliffe.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Mr Chairman, it's my pleasure to take the first of what I hope will be a series of calls on this important bill, which is going to be bad for New Zealanders, bad for the New Zealand economy, and actually bad for our financial and saving institutions as well. As you know, sir, we're in the technical part of the debate here where we're going clause by clause, and I want to begin by offering some fairly narrow comments on the commencement date itself. This is an example of misplaced use of a retrospective commencement date. It's actually quite a confused clause in itself, sir, because subclause 1 of clause 2 says that the Act will come into force on the day in which it receives the royal assent, but no date is provided, breaching what is a long-standing good practice convention upheld by the Parliament and its Regulations Review Committee. In subsection 2, however, it says section 4, the operative section, is treated as coming to force on 1 May 2015, and given that that is prior to today, that ensures a retrospective effect. That means that a young Kiwi who today hears that this door is closing cannot now join KiwiSaver. It's too late because Parliament, if it passes this, will deem that the door shut nearly 3 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago. This is a retrospective implement. Why would you do that, or why would the government do that, when the argument that they have ostensibly for time to take away the $1,000 kickstart is because not enough people have joined the scheme and not enough people have saved? That is their argument. Of course, it's a fallacy, but that's what they're trying to convince New Zealanders of. If they set, as my colleague Chris Hipkins has suggested, a future close-off date, there would be a very strong incentive for anyone who is not currently a member of the scheme to join it. And that would be a very good thing, and it would support the very objectives which the government has said they espouse. It would encourage people to join the scheme and to save more, and particularly those vulnerable or low-income people who to date have been the slowest to join. So setting a retrospective close-off prevents people joining and prevents the very objective which the government says it holds. So even better would, of course, be my colleague David Clark's amendment, which is that the commencement date be deferred until after the coming election. And then it would never happen because the chances of the government getting returned have got to be very, very low. But in principle, that would be a better option because New Zealanders would have the opportunity to vote based on the information which the government's only given to them after the election. The National Party did not campaign on stealing back the KiwiSaver kickstart. Not one word was said about their 8th attempt to gut KiwiSaver. Not one mention of Robert David Muldoon wrecking the last Labor-led savings scheme, which if we had kept, we would be a country as rich as Australia now. This is classic National Party short-termism. Now, Mr Speaker, why has the government got this commencement date? They are relying, Samura, on a very late to the piece evaluation by the Inland Revenue Department, which was released concurrently with this bill, i.e. it has had no opportunity for peer review or public criticism. It has simply fed into this retrospective measure. Now, there's a very, very interesting piece of analysis because it frames the question up front away from the broader objectives which the KiwiSaver scheme has had from its inception, which were really three-way. Firstly, to help all New Zealanders save and save more for their retirement and their general financial well-being. 2, to strengthen our domestic financial institutions so we have sticky local capital that we can invest in Kiwi businesses and Kiwi jobs. Members opposite aren't focused on the debate, they're focused on the gallery. That's a very interesting thing because this is a very far-reaching measure which affects millions of New Zealanders. Affects millions of New Zealanders, sir. And the third objective for KiwiSaver has always been to improve New Zealand's net savings position so that we reduce the current account deficit, strengthen our total balance sheet and fit New Zealand for the future. And what's really interesting, sir, in the IRD's analysis is that it has completely ignored 2.5 of those 3 goals. It's ignored the broad fiscal savings gap issue, and the current account deficit which flows from it. It has ignored the issues around the health of our financial institutions and our ability to invest in our own future. And, sir, Mr. Chairman,
Brett Hudson.
I move the question